So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Blake Litzel. I'm the office coordinator in the Kearney International Center. I've been with the team since October of last year, and I have one of my main responsibilities I've taken over is the Social Security card and work permit process for our international student population. And I'll let Jeannie introduce herself.
I'm Jeannie Clement, and I am student payroll coordinator. I started in April. Cheryl Miller is still in our office, so she's a good resource for me, but here I am.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeannie. So what I'm going to start off with, I'm just going to, for about the next 5-10 minutes, go over my brief outline of what our international student on-campus work permit authorization looks like, and some tips and tricks, as well as talk a little bit about the work authorization form process. And then I'll let Jeannie talk a little bit about how this whole process relates to student payroll. And then after that, we will open it up. I want to have plenty of time for a question and answer session. Just so everyone's aware, we are recording this meeting. Jeannie and I received a few requests from people who could not be here today. And rather than wait till August, they wanted us to record this for them. So to start off, for those of you who aren't aware, I'm going to kind of give a real basic overview of the work permit process. So on this page here that I'm on, this is the Kearney International Center work permit webpage. So what I would first and foremost recommend is if you have any international students, especially students who are brand new to campus this fall, or students who maybe haven't worked on campus before, have them visit this page and read through it. It'll take about 5-10 minutes for them to read through all this. And if they have any questions after that, you can refer them to the Kearney International Center. So they can reach out and ask for me directly, or any of our front desk team. I help supervise and train them in this process. So if they just call our regular number, the extension 1281, they can talk to anyone at the front or myself about this process. But first and foremost, I would have them review this page and go through all these instructions. So the first thing that a student needs in order to start this process is they need to apply for a job and receive a job offer. So once that student has a job offer, if you as the employer decide to move forward with the hire, all you have to do, as far as my office is concerned, is this step 1 here. So basically what you'll do is you'll fill out this verification of on-campus employment. And I'll show you quick what that looks like. Can everyone still see my screen? Okay. So basically you'll fill out this form, just this top portion here, and then you will upload it to this link. And while going through that process, what happens is you'll be entering some student information. And the most key part of this step is that you enter in the student's email address correctly, because once you submit that form, that verification of employment, the student will automatically get an email from our office to the email that you as the employer enter into that form. And that email will have steps and a link to give them all the instructions they need to fill out the work permit process. And then if they have any questions on that, again, direct them to our office. We're more than happy to help with that. But that's really about 90% of what we ask you as the employer to do, is that part. There's a couple other small things we'll go over later in this presentation, but that is the bulk of what we're looking for everyone to do. So since I've been here since last October, some of the, I guess, recurring issues that I've seen, just to name a few, I will have, sometimes I'll have students stop by my office, and they will have that employment verification form from their future employer, and they will try to give it to me that way. For multiple reasons, we don't accept that form from students. We want to get it directly from the employer submitting it on this website here. So I know that some things may seem easier doing it a different way, but this is the most efficient and effective way for us to keep everything in a centralized location. And if there's any issues, then we can address them all in this one area. The other things to make sure that you as the employer keep a close eye on, make sure that you're entering the student's full name and their tech ID. I know a lot of students go by different names, or some of our students have 4, 5, 6 names, and they sometimes go by their middle name, or they have an American name that they have used since they've been here, but we really want their full legal name on the forms, because we want to make sure that we're matching all of their documents together. So if we have 3 different sets of names, if the student has one name on their passport, one name on their social, and then another name on their submission from their employer, it creates a lot of confusion. So we want to make sure that my office and all of your offices are instructing students to please give you their full legal name, preferably the name that's on their passport. The other thing, again, make sure that the email address is entered completely and correctly. We prefer their MNSU email address. The only time that I think we're okay not using that address is if a student is having some sort of connectivity issues with their email, which I know happens, but hopefully is rare. So you can use a personal email, but we really prefer you to use their MNSU address, because that's the address that we will send future correspondence to. So going back to this form here, so once you submit this, then this right here that's on my screen right now, this is an older version, but it looks almost identical to this. This is what the email will look like that the student will get. So if for any reason they don't receive that email, have them check with our office, and we can help them through the process of that. But that's where it's really key that all of you are double or triple checking that email to make sure that the student gave you the right information. The other thing, for some reason, this email has been going to some students' junk folders. I don't know why it goes to some junk folders and not others, but if you know you entered the email correctly and students say they didn't get it, have them check their junk folders as well. So a couple of, I guess, tips or instructions. So if a student is a first-time work permit applicant, and what I mean by that is they tell you that they are applying for a university job, university employer, not including Sodexo, Barnes & Noble, or Affinity Plus. Those 3 they have a separate process for their hiring. So if they're a first-time MSU employed student, they need to schedule a mandatory 30-minute meeting with our staff to fill out tax forms. And if they don't have a social security number, they need to go through that. They go through that with us to make sure that they're preparing properly for that visit. Part of that being is that the Social Security office, depending on where the student is at with the process, if they have never applied for a social, there's certain immigration documents along with that employment verification form that you upload that they need to take with to their appointment. If they don't have all those documents, they'll be denied. They'll be denied when they try to apply, and then they'll have to go back another day. So some exciting news. I don't know if all of you are aware of this. I think it went out in an email a while back. The Mankato Social Security office and the Civic Center, actually, I think it was back in April, late April, they opened to walk-ins now. So ever since, I think, about a month or 2 into COVID, they had only been doing appointments only. And it was a huge hassle for all of our students to try to sit on the phone for an hour to get through to someone. And it was just a huge headache. So I'm talking about the good part of this first. So the good part of it is they can walk into the meetings. The one downside of that is they actually don't take any appointments anymore for Social Security card visits. So with that being said, when students ask me my recommendation for going there, I tell them I highly recommend if you can squeeze it into your morning or early afternoon to do that, because their office most days is only open till 4. And when I have talked with their staff over there, they've informed me that if a person waiting in line is not inside of their office doors before 4, they will turn you away. So they're having everyone socially distance themselves. And if you're still waiting in the hallway when the clock hits 4, they turn people away. So I know some students like to do things last minute, but in this case, I would highly recommend if they ask you, make sure that they go there. I would say at least an hour or two before they close.
Wednesday afternoons too, they're closed.
Oh, yes. I know this is listed on our website somewhere, but what time do they close?
Wednesday, I think they close at noon,
Something like that.
noon or 1, I think it's noon.
Okay, and that information I do have listed on our webpage here, so. So with that being said, so that's for first-time applicants. If a student is renewing, this is something that I think a lot of students have still been confused on, and since I've been here, I've tried to simplify this part as much as possible. If a student is renewing their work permit, all they need to submit after you send in that employment verification form is their passport and I-20. Because all their other information we already have on file, and it just takes them a lot of extra wasted time to upload everything else, which I think is what we used to require. So we updated that so that they only need to upload their passport and I-20, and then I will send Jeannie and payroll the updated work permit dates for the student. And then we can print that updated work permit authorization form, and the student can deliver that to you. So you have the updated expiration dates for those students. The other thing I wanted to talk about, so if students already have a valid on-campus work permit authorization, but maybe you are their second job that they're getting, or maybe they stop working for a while, but then now they want to come work for you. They do not need to, as long as their work permit is still active, they don't need to fill out anything with our office. All they need to do is request, if they don't already have a copy, they need to request an updated copy from us, and then I basically check to make sure that they're still active with their immigration status, and then I sign that work permit authorization and give it to them, and they can give you a copy. So if they ever ask and they're unsure if their work permit is expired, have them reach out to our office and we can check that in 10 seconds. So a few other things, and then I'll let Jeannie talk a little bit here. I see a couple people have wrote some stuff in the chat, so I'll look at that here once I'm done going over a couple more steps. So as far as the work permit processing, right now in the summer, it's only taking about a day or two if students upload all their information. Sometimes if they already have a social, we can even process it same day when we're not that busy. But in the fall, I just want to caution everyone, it probably will take closer to 4 or 5 business days, because we are hopefully, I'm knocking on wood and crossing my fingers, we're hopefully expecting a very large number of incoming international students. And so I haven't been here through a full fall yet myself, so I'm sure it'll be a lot of learning and a lot of busyness. And I just want to let everyone know we're going to get to it as soon as possible, but it could take up to 4 or 5 business days for us to process some of those in the fall. The other thing is a reminder to students, make sure that students are checking their emails very frequently. A lot of times we will send an email and the student will miss it, and then they will come to you or they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, you know, I applied a month ago. Why do I not have my work permit? And our response will be, you know, we sent you an email on this date. Sometimes if we have time, we even try to do a phone call, but we don't get replies. And with how many applicants we get, especially in the fall and spring at the beginning of the semester, we unfortunately don't have the time or resources to reach out more than once or twice. So if you are expecting a student to start, let's say in a week or less, I would be proactive about telling them to stay in contact with us. And if they're not hearing from us in a few days, I have no problem with them reaching out to ask for an update, to ask how the process is going. I'm really hoping that we can get students to be a little more proactive and checking their emails and checking with you or checking with me on the status. The other thing that I think a lot of students get confused on is going back to the Social Security card piece. So back before COVID, we used to require, I wasn't here, but the requirement was that students had to actually physically have that signed Social Security card in order to get their work permit. That is no longer the case. We still require that they they apply for that card, but we can actually issue the work permit to them if they bring us a receipt from the Social Security visit that shows that they will be getting the card. It'll just take a couple weeks. The second piece of that is, even though we issue them their work permit, they still need to go bring their original signed Social Security card to the campus hub, so that so it can be saved to their student records. This is mainly due to tax purposes, that on the tax forms and for student payroll purposes, we need to have a social on file. So students are temporarily granted a temporary social from the time that they show us that receipt and Jeannie sets them up in payroll to the time that they have their actual card. But we're really going to start cracking down on asking students to submit that as soon as they get it. We need to stress that it's very important. Other than that, the last couple of things I want to go over, switching gears a little bit, is the work authorization form. So I know there's a lot of tentacles on this, but mainly what I want to talk about is for new incoming students, the procedure that Jeannie and I would prefer that everyone follows, so that it eliminates confusion and helps all of our communication as a whole. So at a minimum, we would request that all of you make sure that if you're trying to hire a new incoming student, that they at least have an I-20 issued by the Kearney International Center and a valid US visa. We've had a number of students who have received job offers who don't have one or both of those items, and a lot of times if students don't have both of those items, there's sometimes when they aren't even able to come here. So I understand that everyone wants to secure employment, especially if you know, I know a lot of our offices are hurting for staff right now, and all the help really counts. But I think at a bare minimum, we need at least those two things in order for Jeannie and I to feel comfortable with starting to process the paperwork. Once we have those two things, so I can start reviewing their information for the work authorization form. However, student payroll cannot fully process that student's payroll setup until that student has their on-campus work permit authorization. So with that being said, the on-campus work permit portion of that means that we need the following items from the student. So the student has to arrive in Mankato and provide a US address on file. They have to register for courses. They have to have an active SEVIS immigration record. They have to have a Social Security card, or at least a receipt from the Social Security appointment, and they need to complete the required student payroll tax forms. You as the employer will know that the student is authorized to work on campus once you get that work permit authorization form from our office. We call them yellow sheets. So it will have their work permit dates on the top, and it'll be signed by myself or one of our Kearney Center staff members. And that will tell you that it's okay for you to move forward with, you know, having them start work. And if you haven't already, send over that work authorization form to Jeannie's office. So I'm gonna check out our comments here, and then Jeannie, I think, is gonna say a few words here.
Okay, so with the work authorization forms, you know, we have the undergrad, that's actually the paper form, and then we have the grad student one, that's the online form. If you haven't gotten that work permit, it just sits in a stack, and likelihood of it getting caught immediately when they want to start working. I have to have that packet before I can do anything. So they can't get into their East time, and they can't get their contract set up or anything like that. So if you can hold off on sending those over until you have at least that, then I know at least the work permit, the packet from International Center is coming. I seriously have probably 20 of them right now that are I'm waiting for, and a lot of them aren't even going to be here until August, so I can't get anything with those. So if you do notice that, you know, the paperwork was sent over a while back and they still can't enter their time in e-services, they should, you guys should contact me either by email, which we do have a student payroll email. It's just studentpayroll@mnsu.edu. That's the preferred one. Just to remind me that, hey, you should have a packet, but the packets are like, as soon as I get one, I am starting to look in the piles that I have of either contracts or the work authorization forms. So, but please let me know if you think that I probably should have them in already, because you have information that they have their work permit. Some of it is just a timing thing, where it could take, like Blake said, 1 to 2 days now, 4 to 5 days in the fall. But it will happen, so don't be afraid to give me a call or send me an email and ask that question. The online contract ones for the grad students, they cannot go anywhere. I can't put them in so that they have a paycheck coming. So if they don't get that done and they start after, because they cannot work until they have that permit either. So you can't start them just because you have information that they're getting it. So I can't put them into the contract for payroll until that's done either. So that's what I have, I guess.
Okay. Thank you. So I have a few more things I'm going to go over, and then we will open it up to more questions. So just as a reminder, I know this was in the email. Actually, I think both emails that Jeannie sent out. I am setting aside 3 days in August because, like I said, because we're anticipating a lot of new students. So I'm setting aside Wednesday, August 3rd, Thursday, August 11th, and Wednesday, August 17th. So all workday, I'm blocking off my calendar those 3 days specifically to help you as the employers or students with their work permit process. So not that I can't take questions other days, but I thought it would be nice to just set aside those 3 days where that is my sole focus, is to help everyone with that process, especially with the new students who have enough going on and I think are overwhelmed a lot during orientation, and so our staff will be in the Kearney Center to help them with that process. So again, as a reminder, I think the very first best thing for you to tell students if they have no idea how to start with the work permit process is to have them view this webpage here that I know we didn't go over it too much, but that we briefly went over. So this talks about, there's different links for the Social Security application. It talks about what they need for first-time work permit applicant, renewing work permit applicant. This 30-minute meeting, this is one of the required steps in the link that they get in that automated email after you submit the employment form. But if they miss that or it timed out or something, they can reschedule it here. This talks about their meeting, that they'll meet with us, some notes for them, and then at the bottom here it talks about their employment regulations and making sure that they stay within the legal amount of hours that they're allowed to work per week. So that is something that I would recommend having them look at first and foremost. And then I know we real briefly touched base on this, but please make sure that when students are, if most of the time they're going to come to me with these questions, but if they ask you about them, make sure that they are consistently through this whole process writing their full legal name. Where we most run into the issues are if a student goes to the Social Security office and let's say they only use 2 of their 4 names, or they use their middle name as their first name, which is what they go by. That's going to cause problems, and if we get that back and we catch that, then we have to have the student go back to the Social Security office to reapply and get a reissued card. Unfortunately, there's no way for them to just call in. They have to actually go back there, bring in their immigration documents again, and then the office verifies the error, and then they reissue a card. So that process probably take about an extra 2 or 3 weeks for the student. Biggest thing for me that I want students to take away from everything, and I say this every time I meet with them, is communication is key. If they ever have questions, I'd rather have them come to me or Jeannie and ask rather than just submitting all the documents and trying to get it done quick, because especially on the tax forms, we notice a lot of student errors, or maybe they forget to write their apartment number on some of the forms. They just write their address because maybe they're not used to writing apartment number, depending on where they're from. And then later on, when it comes to tax season, they don't get their mail, or they come and ask why they're not getting certain documents, and it's because their address isn't entered correctly. Other than that, I think the only other thing I have, and this again was in Jeannie's email, we're going to be doing one more of these sessions on August 2nd at 10 a.m. So if you know anyone who missed this one, or someone in your office who wants to attend that second session, if they didn't get that email, please forward that email to them, or reach out to one of us and we can resend that invite to them. And like I said, we're also recording this meeting. So if you have anyone that wants a recording, they can reach out to Jeannie or I, and we will get that over to them. Other than that, let me look at the chat here and see what questions we have, and then I'll open it up to if anyone wants to ask questions verbally. So Michelle asked, do we have to see these I-20 and US visa, or do you see them and let us know? So you as the employer don't need to see them. I can look up in their student records if they have those items. We just need to make sure that they have those two things at a minimum in order for you as the employer to submit that work authorization form. What happens otherwise is it sits in the queue, and then I'm sure whoever submitted it is wondering what's going on. I'm sure Jeannie and payroll is wondering what's going on, because I think I'm the first one in that queue process. So it just kind of sits in my queue, and it looks like I'm not doing anything with them, but it's because I can't put notes in there unless I submit or reject it. And I don't want to reject your request, but I also don't want to approve it, because we don't even know if the student's going to be granted a visa to come to the US. So it really helps us out a lot if you can reach out to the student and make sure they at least have those two items. I'll leave it up to all of you, however you want to. I don't know if there's a way for you to kind of soft offer them the position, or say, you know, pending an I-20 and visa, we'll offer you this position. Because I do realize that a lot of you, including our office, have a great need for additional help, especially with GAs, TAs. So I don't want to hinder that process for anyone, but I think it creates a lot of confusion on your end, our end, and the student's end if they are kind of sitting in limbo for a month or two and they don't quite know what's going on. And every student situation tends to be slightly different depending on what country they're coming from, how long their visa wait time is, whether they're transferring in or whether they're a new student, whether they're in the US already or not. So if there's ever a situation you don't quite understand, send me an email or give me a call, and I will do my best to help walk you through it. Sometimes that'll mean me bringing in an immigration advisor if there's a complex situation to help explain things, but our office is here to help you and the students with those questions. Courtney asks, will you be sending out an email invitation for those days and times? I think Jeannie had sent out 2 emails already with that information, but if you didn't get them,
I'll send another one, probably like 2 days before, probably,
okay.
or maybe a week before, and then another reminder 2 days before, just so you have the Zoom link and all that stuff.
Courtney, are you on the student payroll reminder list?
Usually, our admin will forward me the information, just because with the payroll and all of that, it goes through her.
Okay.
Except I'm on as a supervisor to our engagement center, and that's probably 75% international.
Okay.
So we'll have quite a few new onboarding, and so far we were trying to create a well balance, and we're so thankful for what we're working with. They're wonderful, but it gets tricky, especially with how many come in at one time.
So what, is there maybe something that we can all collaborate on to make anything easier, or do you have any, I guess, suggestions or questions on anything that we went through?
This is so helpful. I mean, a lot of it, luckily, we've been so fortunate with a wonderful international population. So we've been privy to repetition in that. We have been collecting, applications along the way. So we're able to have a little bit of visibility, what our pool is going to look like. So far, again, all interested are international. But it's just more of being prepared ahead of time as much as we can. Hopefully some of our managers are stayed local, so we'll let them have July and we'll bring them in earlier. So I'll make sure and stay. This is my first time in this role in the fall. So I just want to make sure and be as knowledgeable and prepared, and I just appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, this will be my first fall too.
Mine too.
All right.
So
All right.
we're all
Team first year, let's go.
Bunch of rookies.
Me
We
too.
can learn together. We have a lot. The bonus is here that we have so much documented. And so a lot of this is just more of knowing where our tools and assets are. And so these are very helpful.
great. That's good to hear. Let's see. Michelle asked, do they have to be employed for a minimum or maximum hours? Michelle, do you have I guess, a little bit more specifics on that? Is there a specific example you're talking about that you could give us?
Actually, I saw you had it up on the screen. I think that answered my question.
Okay. Yeah, on this work permit webpage, it gives an overview of how much undergrad or grad students are allowed to work per week. If you're ever confused on that, let me know. It took me about my first 6 months to get a good handle on it, because the way it was worded, depending on what webpage I looked at, was confusing. So when I thought I knew what the answer was, then I'd see it differently somewhere else. So I'm trying to, since I've been here, I'm trying to make sure everything is accurate and works and is cohesive. But the information you see on this webpage, I just had updated a little while ago, so everything should be up to date as far as their work hours and requirements.
Also remember that if they have more than one job as a student help, the max is for both jobs together, just so we don't exceed that.
Robin had a question. She said, I completed the verification form using the student's personal email address. Will this cause problems? No, it will not cause problems. We typically recommend that all employers try to use their MNSU email address if possible, because our students in our office are all trained to use that MNSU email address, because from my understanding, and maybe this is just because I'm new, but or newer, my understanding is that we are supposed to use that MNSU email address for anything related to like immigration information or university updates or work permit information. So I was under the understanding that that was a university policy. So that's mainly why I've been promoting all that. I think our emails may be a little more secure than all the random emails that students are using. The other thing along with the email is I can't recommend enough to students not to send us their social in emails. I've had students attach their social security card in emails, I think not quite understanding that that isn't the most secure way to do it. So I know it's a pain sometimes to have them come into the office, but I always recommend with those that they bring those into the office so that we don't have to get those in email inboxes. Melissa asked, can you provide the full webpage link in chat? Only a portion is showing. Oh, yes, sorry, I meant to do that. 1 second here. We are actually expected to do the official correspondence with the MSU email. Okay. Okay. I think those are all the questions in the chat. Does anyone who's in the call right now have any questions that they want to unmute themselves and ask us so the group can hear it? Melissa asked, is there a way to show the students how do their emails with their name and not star ID version? I guess I'm not sure. Do you ever get emails that way where they use their?
No, not
I think I guess I don't know from a student's perspective, but I know like when I'm trying to search for a student, if I don't have their full email and I don't have their tech ID or anything, if I'm just typing in their full name on my Outlook through my university account, that most of the time their name will come up and then I can just copy that email address and use that one. So I guess if that's what you're looking for, maybe that. Otherwise, I don't know how many of you have access to ISRS, but when I have the student's tech ID, then I can look up on the address tab and I can see the student's MNSU email address as well as their personal address on that page. I hope that kind of answers your question. Melissa says new students sometimes think they have to do star ID instead of. Yeah, that's kind of a mixed bag situation. I get all kinds of different student emails, but I think we really do prefer the first name dot last name at mnsu.edu. I mean, either should work from my understanding, but I think just to make everything the same among all of us, I think it would be best to use the MNSU email address just to eliminate any sort of confusion. Courtney asks, can we always stop in for assistance? Yeah, I am in my summer hours right now, unless I have a day off. It's Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4. Otherwise, during the school year, our office will be open 9 to 4. I am usually in before that. But yeah, if you ever have any questions, feel free to stop by. You can call my extension. It's 1081 is my direct extension. Otherwise, Teams, email, whatever works. I don't know Jeannie's full schedule and her availability if she's free for drop-ins, but I know she's been really good at getting back to everyone's emails pretty quickly. So
yeah, I work 7:30 to 4 and take lunch, you know, for an hour somewhere in the 12:30 to 1:30 area. So, but yeah, you can stop in our office and most likely I will be there. I don't have any vacation built up, so.
does anyone else, I'll give it a few more minutes here before we log off if there's no questions, but does anyone have any questions they want to type in the chat or unmute themselves and ask? There's no stupid questions, so you can ask me anything.
I just have one. So when we do the form, the F1 form, so it's called the F1. How do we know that you've gotten it? I've had a couple of situations where the student will ask me how come I hadn't sent it yet, and I had. That's actually happened twice, not recently, but it has happened. So I'm just, is there any type of verification that we get, or just once the student gets it, they verify it?
I've had that asked to me a couple of times before, and I've kind of asked around our more tech savvy people, and I don't know if I can try asking around a little bit more in our office, but I don't know if there's a real slick, easy way for us to set up in the system for each employer to get like the same type of automated response to know that the student received that. But I will certainly look into that again, but what I would recommend is after you submit that and verify before you submit it that the email is correct, give it maybe 2 or 3 days. And if the student doesn't have their work permit by then, talk to them and ask them, you know, what's going on? Why haven't you gotten your work permit yet? Because really, now that the social office is open for walk-ins, there isn't that 2 or 3 week excuse anymore that students can give on why it's taking so long. So unless our office is just slammed super busy, it's going to happen in 2 or 3 days turnaround on that. The other thing is, if you really need to hire someone, you know, ASAP, just call me or send me an email or stop by the office if you're around. And even if I'm not there, just explain that you're so-and-so's student's employer, just have their name and tech ID with you. And then myself or our team can look up in the process and see where we're at. And if we, you know, if you call or email me and I say, hey, we haven't gotten this submission, then you know probably one of 2 things. Either the student gave you a wrong email address, or the student received the email and they haven't acted on it yet.
Okay.
One thing to think about too, or to know is when I get the packet and either the social security number was not added when they applied for coming to MNSU, or if they're getting a new one and they have a temporary one, I can't personally put that in. I have to send that information to somebody else. And so I'm waiting on that person also. So that can be a day or 2 delay before it can get put into. So,
Oh, good to know.
yeah, so that, you know, I wish I could put them in, but I can't. So,
Good to know. Thank you.
yeah.
It looks like we have a few more.
The one question, do student workers get notified when timesheet is set up? No, we have too many of them to go, and then what happens is I say something, then I get another email back. Thanks, you know, so we're trying to eliminate that. Just have them keep checking, and if you do notice that it's not in, you know, just then email and say, hey, you know, we're missing this one, person can't go in. It's just to eliminate the amount of emails back and forth is appreciated.
The other thing I see a lot, just that question just made this pop in my head. Quite frequently, we'll have students come into us and ask the Kearney Center why they can't log their work hours in e-services. 9 times out of 10, it's because student payroll is either still setting something up or they're missing something from their supervisor. So if students come to me with that, I will almost always direct them back to you as the supervisor and tell them to talk with you to make sure that you have set everything up with payroll. And if you think everything's set up but something's wrong, then just send the student payroll at mnsu.edu whatever questions you have, and I'm sure Jeannie would be able to help work you through what's going on, why they can't log their hours.
Yeah, so talking about logging hours too, just kind of on a side note, we just did that roll sheet option where you could renew people that were working as of June 30th, that we extended them into the next fiscal year. If you've not done that, or if somebody can't sign in, that is the reason. We are caught up with everybody. There's like 15 sheets of roll sheets that are not out to me yet. So hopefully they get returned, because if I don't get them by July 1st, they're not gonna be able to punch their time in. So just kind of, the new work authorizations are gonna have to be done, I guess. So, so just keep that in mind, please.
Looks like we have another question or two. Melissa asked, can you share any estimation of how many international students you may have coming for fall? Just curious. I don't want to jinx anything. I'm not really a superstitious person, but some people I know are, who are helping out with all this. We are hopefully expecting, if a good chunk of the people who receive their I-20s are coming, we're expecting I'll just say a very high number of students, possibly close to a new record amount of students for an incoming semester, but I don't really want to give out any numbers right now because from what I've heard in my brief time here, that there's so many X factors in this. You know, right now we still have a lot of students in some countries who are trying to, they have their I-20 from us, but they're trying to get a visa appointment, and some countries have a lot of strange and borderline fraudulent situations that go on. So it's a very interesting, lengthy process for some students, and it sounds very straightforward to us, but for many students, it is a very long, complicated process in their home country for them to get that visa appointment, and then they still have to get through that visa appointment and be issued the visa. So we offer different sessions. Our students and staff help students with those sort of things, but if all goes well, we're expecting a really large number of students, which would be great.
Yeah, right. And that's it to get on it.
It's not something, do students get notified when the timesheet is set up?
Oh, we already
No.
answered that one.
Yeah, no, they don't get notified. They just have to keep trying. And tell them if they, you know, after a couple of days and you think it should be in, send us an email. Could be we're waiting for that social security number, the temporary one, or the real one to get entered. So.
I think
I've-
go ahead.
I have a question. So the F1J1 form, if we know a student's already working somewhere else on campus, but another department wants to also hire them, we still have to fill that out? Or are they already authorized? Or we already know they're authorized, or do we still fill that out?
If they already have a work permit, they just need to give you a copy of that. If those things are happening simultaneously, I would still recommend that you fill it out, because
Okay,
I don't think that happens very often, but sometimes students will, I think, apply for a bunch of positions and then they'll just pick one. So we like to know where students are working. One of the questions on the tax forms is for them to write in that information. But let's say a student starts somewhere August 1st and then you hire them for September 1st, but they already have a work permit. They just need to give you that copy, and then you just need to clarify with them that they know that they have to remain in those certain amount of hours. So for example, if they're an international undergrad student, they're only allowed the max 20 hours a week between your position and whatever other positions they have on campus. The only exceptions that I'm aware of since I've been here are if a student has a severe economic hardship approval. That's kind of a whole nother session that I'm still learning about, so I can't talk too much to that, but if you ever have a student say that they have that, I would recommend that you reach out to our office and we can explain that further. But generally speaking, for most situations, it's going to be the 20 hours a week for an undergrad.
right, okay. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.